In this video, I'll teach you how to play 4 of my favorite modes: Dorian, Aeolian, Phrygian, and Lockrian. As you can see, it's an hour-long video and there's so much content to enjoy. We'll be including tabs, diagrams, and so much more, so stick around. I assume you're a serious guitar player. If you clicked on an hour-long video, let's get into today's lesson. This is the Dorian mode, a really fun, jazzy, minor-sounding mode. Now, there are 2 popular and common minor scales. One is Aeolian, also known as natural minor, and one is this mode. It's the Dorian mode. It's kind of the jazzier, bit of a majory vibe. It's got a bit of a twang to it, which is really fun for us to improvise with. Dorian is the second mode of the major scale. It's used over minor 7 chords, and it consists of 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, and a root. You'll hear this mode used a lot in modal jazz, in funk. Now I'm guessing that you already are familiar somewhat with this mode, but have you really internalized it? Can you hear it? Can you sing that mode? That's what we'll be doing today. I'm putting Dorian in the B tier with Mixolydian because it's a super fun scale to solo with. It's not as common and ubiquitous as something like the Aeolian minor scale or Ionian, but it's still really important to know and one of my favorite scales to solo with. But first, a quick recap of yesterday's lessons. You learned all about the Mixolydian mode. This is used over dominant chords. Dominant chords are found in a couple of situations. The most common one being in the 5 chord in a key. So for example, key of G major, 5 is D. We'd play D Mixolydian over that chord. You will also see dominant chords in blues on the 1, 4, and 5. And you can use Mixolydian over all of those 4 chords. Now today we're entering into our first minor type mode, and that's Dorian. And there's actually only 1 note difference between Mixolydian and Dorian. There's a lot of actually shared notes, even though one is major, Mixolydian, and one is minor, Dorian. So let's get into what the Dorian mode is. And first, as always, grab your guitar and play this chord. This is a C minor 6. This is the sound of Dorian. Why? Well, we have that, what some people actually call the Dorian 6. This is the 6th right here. And then we have the upper part of a minor chord. If you're a more advanced student, you can grab the 9th here on the top. Let's walk through each of these notes and see how they relate. So we have that 9, or the 2. This is where you get that nice minor sound. Flat 3, of course, defines it as a minor mode. 4, 5. Of course, we have our minor pentatonic built into the Dorian mode. So that's included, free of charge. I won't charge you extra for that. So 4, 5, and then most importantly, we have that major 6th. So this is giving it that uplifting jazzy sound versus the flat 6 from Aeolian, which is this sound. So natural 6, it's a bit happier, right? Aeolian, which we'll cover tomorrow, is a bit more sinister, a bit more minor-y. So just like Mixolydian had that flat 6, flat 7, we have that same movement in Dorian, and that's why I was emphasizing it a little bit yesterday. So it was this type of sound. You also have that in Dorian. But the difference is you have that minor 3rd as well. Instead of Mixolydian, which would have been, we have Dorian, which is. So when we get to the jam at the end of today's lesson, there's going to be 2 little pockets of this scale, which I'll be really emphasizing. The first is going to be that 6 to flat 7 in both positions of the guitar. And the other one is going to be that 9, that's that jazzy neo-soul sound, which you can use both in your chords, as in with the C minor 9 chord, as well as in your soloing. That's a really nice note to hang on, and it's part of the kind of modal vocabulary, is to really outline those upper chords, because if you only stay within the minor pentatonic, and it's a chord, just one chord, for the whole song or a whole section of a song, it gets a bit boring. So you really want to target in Dorian the 9th and the 6th. Those are the sweet spots. So that is Dorian, but where should you use the Dorian mode? Well, there are two common situations in a song where you go ahead and use this. The first is going to be on a 2 minor 7 chord. So key of C major. The 2 chord in this key of C major is going to be D minor. We would use D Dorian on that. And that's going to outline the sound of the D minor 7. If the key's B flat major, our 2 chord in the key of C major would be C minor. Often you'll hear this chord progression. That's a 2-5-1. On the 2 chord in a major key, you would play D Dorian. That is if you're kind of playing more of a jazz type of song and you want to outline the sound of each chord. Because as I've mentioned throughout this grade, it's not always appropriate to play one or think one mode per chord. And in fact, that sometimes can hinder us in our soloing because it's too much to think about. What if we just wanted to, rip on it? But the Dorian is going to be a valuable tool for us to learn to really outline the sound of that 2 chord. The second and probably more common and enjoyable situation we'll be using Dorian is over a song which is in a minor key, but specifically in a minor key with a Dorian sound. So you often see this in funk, groove, jazz. Miles Davis's song So What famously is in a Dorian key. So that's this type of sound. And you'll see this not just with the swing feel, but also, funk and other groove-based music. Lastly, sometimes you'll be playing a song, seeing a lead sheet, or listening to a song, you might just hear a minor 6 chord. So anytime you see a minor 6 chord, you usually want to play Dorian because that minor 6, that's that shape, and Dorian is really going to include the 6th in the scale versus something like Aeolian, which has that flat 6. So an example of where you might see a minor 6 chord would be key of G major. And then you might see a C minor 6. Which C being the 4 in the key of G minor, but being a 4 minor chord. That's a common example where you see a minor 6 chord. Another one would be maybe just a parallel minor 6 chord, so this type of vibe. So let's get on to these 4 steps. Even if you're already comfortable with the Dorian scale, I want you to slow things down and really make sure you internalize it. You just have to do it once and you'll hear it for the rest of your life. So let's get into it. Our 1 octave of D Dorian. Super simple, fitting inside that minor pentatonic box. But we're going to add on those 9th and 6th notes. So just walking through it slowly. 1, 2, flat 3 on the low E string, 2 notes on the next string. Here I'm going 4, 5, the note's 4, 5, and on On that note, I'm going to use my pinky rather than my index finger because that's going to set me up for success on the D string, where I'll reach back with my first finger to the 7th fret. So all together, pinky, move back. On the way down, pinky, position change. Right hand just doing alternate picking. So there it is. Let's move on to step 2 where we'll sing this. So get your singing voice ready. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 3, flat 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Right, so now we are singing each of these notes. Again, it's so important to sing because we're going to bring it inside. We're going to make sure we really know what we're playing rather than just playing a scale because we can see the scale diagram or we saw some tab. We really have to sing it. Now, if you're kind of feeling super comfortable, I would encourage you to actually not touch your guitar at all and see if you can sing it without your guitar. That's the real ultimate test here. So take it slow, loop it a few times. Don't cheat yourself. Take your time with this because we really want to get the sound, particularly that that half step there. It might take you a little bit to get accurate with that. Our full position of C Dorian. So it's fitting really nicely in that blues box, which I'm sure you're comfortable with. So I just want to touch a little bit on the fingering to make sure you can transition nicely. So lower half. So we're starting here with the pinky, 10th fret, and then we just have 1, 2, flat 3, 4. This here is where we transition like we did with Aeolian to our first finger to put ourselves in a good position to finish off. On the way down, similar to Aeolian, we'll do that little pivot there. Pinky 10, descending down. Here, as you learned in the lower octave, we want to transition back. So there's a couple of small pockets to get really comfortable with and some patterns which might be helpful for you to see. The first one is on the top 2 strings. We have that same pattern. So you can kind of find a lot of melodicism within those 2 strings. You'll often see this phrase, which is 6, 1, flat 3. That's a super common one. Also highlighting the 9, often with a hammer on, if you're doing neo-soul thing. So that's a nice little area of the scale to explore. In a similar way, those middle 2 strings, you have these sounds. So it's that 1, 2, 4 fingers, 1, 2, 4. You'll often hear this sound, which is 6, 1, flat 3, which is the same as that, but down an octave. Get a little bit of muting on that, get a bit of stank on it. Really nice if it's more of a funky vibe. So that's the scale. Get comfortable with it, take it slow, right hand alternate picking, and really aim for accuracy both rhythmically but also tonally. Get a bit of vibrato in there as needed. So I'll see you in the jam and let's have some fun. Welcome to the jam. What we're doing is trading off as per usual, taking it slow and making sure we're hearing what we're playing. I'll go first and I'll be starting off in the lower octave and I'll be singing and saying the scale degrees as I play them. Here we go. 1, 2, flat 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, flat 7, 6. Your turn. Lower octave, say and play. Sing and play. Let's do that again. 6, flat 7, 6, 7, 7, 1, 7, 6, 1, flat 7, 6. Bit of a mouthful, go ahead. let's just simplify it, just sing and play. Your turn, sing and play. I'll give you another chance at that. You sounded great. Go for it, sing and play. Keep it going. All right, I'm gonna play something. I want you to play it back. Let me hear that. And again, my turn. Let me hear that. My turn, play this back. Go for that. And again, same thing. Your turn, let me hear that. Okay, a little bit harder. Last one of these. All right, let's trade off anything you like, but see if you can reply to me. A little bit of a call and response here. I'll go first. Here we go. Go for it. Back to me. Your turn. My turn. Your turn. Go for it. Going. Okay, I'm going to give you some space now, a couple of times through, get it feeding and sounding good. Last time through, let's hear it. This is the Aeolian mode, also known as the natural minor scale. One of the most common scales you'll come across, because if a song's in a minor key, chances are the scale you'll be playing is Aeolian. Aeolian is the sixth mode in a major key. You use it over minor seventh chords and minor ninth chords, and it consists of 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and the root. And I'll be putting Aeolian in the A tier because, as I said, if a song's in a minor key, this is your go-to scale. It's way more common than Dorian in popular music, and it's one of the first scales that we'll hear and play on the guitar. Now, before we get into today's lesson, I know that you're probably already somewhat familiar with the scale, so this will be a slightly more technical and advanced lesson to give you plenty to work on. So as always, let's grab the chord to outline the sound, and this is just going to be our good old C minor 9 chord. Let's walk through each of the notes from C Aeolian. That's going to be 1, 2, flat 3. So that 2 is the 9, that's where we get the minor 9 chord from. And interesting to note that so far it's exactly the same as Dorian. Let's keep going up the scale. So we have 4, 5. Nothing different there from Dorian. So far it's just the minor sound, right? Then after the 5, we have the flat 6, and this is where things get sinister. where you get that sound. It's that classic 5 to flat 6 sound. And really, the flat 6 note is perhaps the most defining note of Aeolian, at least compared to other minor scales, Dorian, for example. So let's keep going up. After flat 6, we hit the flat 7, just like in Dorian, and then we're back to the root. As you can probably see, we have our minor pentatonic within the scale. If we extend that all the way up, and if we turn the scale from a linear scale into a stacked arpeggio or chord, we'll get 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7, 9. So this is where we get the 9 chord from. And then we also have that 11th up the top there. This is where you get your minor 11th chords from. So the 11th is a nice color tone as well. Now the flat 6 is not often used on a chord because it's kind of like hanging there, right? It's suspended. So that's kind of a note you'll pass over. Or if you do play it, you really want to know about it and be able to hear it and play it with intent, because it's a little bit not quite right, but it is part of the scale. Now there are two common situations where we'll use the Aeolian scale. One, of course, is if the song's in a minor key, you play the Aeolian mode from the tonic home bass. All that means is, let's say the song's in the key of A minor. Our home bass is A, it's in the key of A minor, so we just play Aeolian over that whole chord progression. Similar to how if a song's in a major key, we could play A major of the whole thing. We can do the same thing with minor. If a song's in a minor key, just blanket it with that Aeolian sound. The second common example where you'll be using Aeolian is if you're in a major key and you go to the 6th chord. So let's say we're in the key of A flat major. So we have chord 1 is A flat. And then the 6th chord is F minor. So the 6th chord in a major key is Aeolian. So we just play Aeolian on that. This is more common, as you will remember in the other modes, that sometimes you don't want to think about a mode per chord, but if you're playing jazz, then that's when you want to kind of outline the sound of each chord. In that particular example, I could have just been thinking A flat major over the whole thing. A flat, A flat, A flat. But if it was something like this, then for each of those chords, I would be outlining the sound of it. And that's just the jazz approach to chord soloing. So let's get into the steps. And even if you know the scale already, I'll be giving you some more advanced tips and ways to use these steps to really enhance your technique. So let's get into it. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is our 1 octave of C Aeolian. Make sure you're doing alternate picking in the right hand, because that's going to set yourself up for success once we move to the full position. So there's nothing too crazy going on here. The nice thing about Aeolian is you can stay in position on these lower strings, unlike Dorian. One tip here is once we get to the full position, you'll be actually playing pinky on the root note. But for now, just play it up and down a few times, make sure you're comfortable and you're ready to move on. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, 7, 1, flat 7, flat 6, 5, 4, flat 3, 2. So when you're singing it, I particularly want you to slow things down around that 5 to flat 6. The 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6. Really get that dark feeling in your voice, because that's going to really get the sound of Aeolian. And then on the way back down, you want to feel those intervallic jumps between da-da, da-da-da. This is the full position of C Aeolian, and as you can hear there, I threw in a spanner in the works with a different bit of a sequence there, and that's totally optional for you. The main thing I want you to take away from today's lesson is to be able to play it through, even at a slow pace. So let's just walk through this position. I'll kind of run through it quite briefly because you should have known it by now in this pathway and on Pick Up Music. So at the bottom, easy as, continuing up, starting on the pinky, just like we have been with the other modes. Same positional change here as we did in Dorian and Mixolydian. And then we just have that flat 6 there. And then up the top, it's the same. On the way back down, not much different to Dorian. Positional change here. And then once we're going down, we want to go to our first finger here, which will set us up for our pinky. After I played it up and down, I wanted you to give this kind of sequence pattern a go. So what we're doing is we're going to play a note, skip a note, and then go down. And in order to do this, if it's new to you, you have to think ahead. What is the next note? And go back down. And it's kind of musical. So you kind of have to be thinking ahead on where your finger's going to go. On the way down, it's the same thing in reverse. At the end there, I dropped down to the flat 7 to bring us back home. So a slightly more advanced way to practice the scale, but it's really the next logical step. Once you can play a scale up and down in sequence, just top to bottom, you want to start mixing it up with these sequences because it's going to break you out of those kind of patterns and break you out of sounding like you're playing a scale and really kind of break it down into components. All right, grab your guitar, let's have some fun. You should be really confident with the scale, so maybe you want to challenge yourself, really sing it, really hear it, really target that flat 6. I'll go first, here we go. Singing while I play. Your turn, go for it. My turn, targeting the 9th. Your turn, target the 9. All right, I'm going to play something. I want you to play it back. Let's go for it. Here we go. Another one. Ready? Let me hear that. All right, now I want you to play anything you like. Really exaggerate that 5 to flat 6. Go for it, here we go. Stuff. This is the Phrygian mode, a really dark and mysterious minor type mode, and one of the funnest ones, the solo one. Now, although less common in Western music, this is perhaps one of the first times you'll encounter a mode where you're like, that's a new sound, and therefore one of the most enjoyable sounds to explore. Phrygian is the third mode in a major key. It's used over minor 7th chords, and it consists of a minor scale, but we're going to add on that flat 9. So it's going to be 1, flat 2, or 9, same thing, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and the root. And the real key note here is going to be that flat 9, which is where we get that dark, mysterious vibe from. Now, this lesson will be a little bit more brief compared to the other scales because it's less commonly used in the music we teach at Pickup Music, although it is a very fun scale to explore. I'm putting Phrygian in the E tier because it's less used than something like Dorian or Aeolian, but it is still an enjoyable one. So let's walk through the nice spots within this scale. So the first one I really want to highlight is that half step between the root and the 2 or flat 2. And you can really highlight this a lot if you do a big intervallic jump. So you go root, flat 2, and then jump up an octave to that root. Because you're going to get that really, really beautiful spot there. The other thing you want to do is maybe bring in some legato to kind of accentuate the sound of the scale. You don't usually want to land on that flat 9 for too long because it's kind of a suspended note. You want to resolve it back. But it's a nice little dance you can do playing between the root and the flat 9. In terms of how I want you to think about the scale on your guitar is think about it as Aeolian but with a flat 9. So Aeolian, 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1. Still within that minor pentatonic. All we need to do is to change one note, which is drop the 9 down a half step. So we have, instead of this note, we have this note. And we still have a minor pentatonic within Phrygian. But we're just going to add the flat 9, flat 6. And we'll be playing that together in the upcoming exercises. There are 2 common scenarios in a song where you could use Phrygian. The first is going to be on the 3 chord in a major key. So let's say the key is A flat major. So we have a song in A flat. Often we'll have a 3 chord in the key, which is going to be a C minor 7. So technically we could play C Phrygian on the C minor 7. Why? Because it's the 3rd chord in the key. So that would sound something like this. But, and quick theory warning here, often we don't want to think Phrygian because it sounds a little bit out of place, right? So often when the 3 chord is playing, we just want to think tonic major chords. So in this example, I'm going to play the same chords, but I'm just going to think A flat, A flat, A flat. It's a really nice sound. And because there's a lot of common notes between the 1 chord and the 3 chord, we can often get away with just thinking major scale, but it's over the 3 chord. Another approach here you could use would be maybe an arpeggio, or even just the minor pentatonic. But in practicality, just thinking major scale over the 3 chord is the easiest way to approach it, and often the most listenable way to approach the 3 chord as well. And getting deeper into the theory for those jazz musicians listening, sometimes on the 3 chord we'll actually play Dorian. So we'll often have this chord progression which is a 3, 6, 2, 5. So it's something like this. 3, 6, 2. And on that 3 chord, by the book, we should play Phrygian. But often jazz musicians will play Dorian. They'll just treat it as a 2 chord. So they'll say, so that's just going to the 5 chord. But on the 3 chord, if it's in a 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, particularly if you have more time, you can just play Dorian. Anyway, jazz theory aside, the first instance where you can use Phrygian is over the 3 chord in a major key, which is a minor 7 chord. But you can probably just think and play your major scale over that 3 chord. The second common example that you'll hear this is over a song which is really a Phrygian sounding song. And one of the most common chord progressions that you'll hear this in is this one here, which is E minor to F. So over this chord progression, I would play E Phrygian. Over the F, I would continue playing E Phrygian. And this also works over if the chords are E major to F major. You might have heard this sound. It's one of the first things us guitar players play. So over that chord progression, E Phrygian is the sound of the entire chord progression, and it's a really fun one to explore. You might have heard this in some styles of metal as well as flamenco. So as you can hear, 2 less common scenarios that you might encounter as your day-to-day life as a guitar player playing styles such as R&B or jazz, but still a fun scale to explore. So even if you don't want to, play Phrygian or write a song in the Phrygian sound, there is going to be a big takeaway for you today, which is a new position of the major scale. That'll be in that 3rd step, so do stick around for that. 2, 3, and 4. This is 1 octave of C Phrygian. We're staying with 1 finger per fret. 1 flat 2 flat 3, and then just up the scale. So nothing too challenging there. Get comfortable with it, then let's sing it through. 2, 3, let's sing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, flat 7, flat 5, 4, flat 3, flat 2, 1, and again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, flat 6, 7, 1, flat 7, flat 6, 5, So take it slow, sing it through, and really hear that flat 9. Maybe you want to add it onto the top. And definitely on the way down. And just interesting to note that we still have that 5 to flat 6, which we practiced yesterday in Aeolian. So it's kind of, it brings forward that dark, mysterious sound from Aeolian, adds on the flat 9 Phrygian sound, and that's how you get the kind of double kind of whammy here. 2, 3, and 4. Right, so this may be a new position of the major scale for you. So first I'll just show you it as it relates to kind of our minor pentatonic, and then I'll kind of connect the dots on how you can use this position, not just for Phrygian, but in other modes as well. So let's start off with the basics. So let's get our minor pentatonic and just map that out for you. So we'll be staying within this box and we'll just be adding a couple of notes, which are the flat 9, adding on that flat 6. So once you add the minor pentatonic plus the flat 9 and flat 6, what do you have? You have Phrygian. So let's walk it through. So starting from the low string, 1, flat 2, 3, flat 3. Next string, 4, 5, flat 6, like Aeolian. 7, 1. And this is where we have the other flat 9. Walking our way up the minor pentatonic. And then we have 5, flat 6, flat 7, like Aeolian. And then we're up to the root. Let's extend it upwards with the flat 9 and then the flat 3 on the top, just like we have in the bottom string. So let me just point out a few things in the scale position. This is assuming that it's brand new to you. So this, at the moment, might be feeling a little bit foreign, so let's connect the dots here. So you could think of it as just C Aeolian with a flat 9, right? So that's a nice way to think of it. But we're actually playing A flat major scale here because C is the third of A flat. And we have our A flat up here. So if you know the cage system, this is our C shape. So this is actually A flat major, but we're just starting on the note C. And, you know, theory, cage, fretboard warning, this might feel a bit heady for you, but I'm just trying to connect the dots so you can see how this is a really important scale and how you can use it with other modes and in other keys. So A flat is our tonic 1 chord. So if we go up 3, 1, 2, 3, that's the note C, right? So now we're in C Phrygian. So all that to say is this scale position is one of the top 5 scale positions, which you'll know if you know the cage system. This is effectively expanding on the C shape to make a full major scale. And if you just end that scale position on the note C, and you play the note the chord C, then you have your C Phrygian. So you'll be using the scale position for the rest of your life. So spend some time with this exercise, slow it down if need be, and really get it sounding good. It's quite a neat position because you do stay in the 1 finger per fret. So there's none of that kind of repositioning like other positions have. So you can kind of lock in really nicely, and you'll be using this. And in fact, you may have been using it all a lot. This is kind of stepping outside a little bit, but I wanted to give you something to take away beyond just the scale itself. So kind of a common way you'll use this position, and this is not Phrygian specific, is for this sound here. a key of A flat major, we have that double stop there. And you hopefully sparks are flying now. If you know that, that type of sound there, that's actually within the scale position. So there you are. Don't worry if that was a lot. Hopefully you're starting to see things connect, and you could just walk away today with, oh, Phrygian's a cool sound. It has a flat 9. It's an interesting sound to explore, and that would be plenty to take away. Let's have some fun and get this Phrygian sound in our ears and our fingers. I'll go first, and I'm going to focus on the flat 9. Your turn. Let's keep doing that back to me. Your turn. Back to me. Now I'm going to really highlight the 5 to flat 6, like an Aeolian. My turn. Here we go. Your turn. All right, flat 9 and flat 6. Your turn. All right, let's trade off. Anything you like. Your turn. Keep it going. Get that flat 9 in there. Maybe a little bit legato. Right, I'll give it a crack. Here we go. It's quite nice to get some minor pentatonic things in there. You give that a go. See if you can do that dance between minor pentatonic and Phrygian. Both are correct. Keep it going. All right, I'll give you a couple more bars here. Give it everything you got. Let me hear that Phrygian sing. Welcome to Lockrian. Locrian is used over minor 7 flat 5 chords, and it's the 7th mode in a major key. The notes consist of 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, that's the important one, flat 6, flat 7, and 1. You'll hear this mode in heavier types of metal, like thrash metal, as well as in jazz over a minor 2-5-1. It's less commonly used over pop music, R&B music, and it's only for you if you're trying to kind of be a completist and learn all 7 modes. That's totally valid. Or if you're a jazz guitar player and you really want to be able to master the minor 2-5-1, or perhaps you're adventurous and you want to kind of explore a new sound, Locrian mode is for you. I'm putting Locrian in the F tier just because it's less common and less widely used, but it is still a super fun one to learn. So let's recap those minor modes so far because they do relate to what you'll be learning today. So all of the modes so far have been more or less around that minor pentatonic, so C minor pentatonic. And we've just been adding on different flavors. For Dorian, it was adding on that major 6. For a bit of a happy sound, we made it a flat 6 in Aeolian. We turned up the dial on the darkness with Phrygian by using that flat 9. And then now we're going to make it even darker by giving it that flat 5. So it's about as dark as we can get. So let's get into Lockrian. As always, we want to play a chord to get the sound of the mode. And this is going to be our minor 7 flat 5 chord. This is a really common shape. C minor 7 flat 5. So the chord itself says a lot about the modes. Minor 7 flat 5. So the flat 5 means instead of a normal 5, C minor 7, we have a flat 5. So that's the 5 there. We're going to drop it down. And then we just have a C minor 7 flat 5. We'll also find that 5 down here in this lower octave, which will be in step 1. So from the root note, 1 flat 2 flat 3, like Phrygian, 4 flat 5, because it's a flat 5. We have the flat 6, flat 7, and then the root. Interesting to note that from the root note we have kind of these whole steps. So it's quite big steps. It's almost like you're skipping a skip on the way down. I mean, you effectively are. You're skipping a note each time. So that's quite an interesting spot in the scale. And then we have the half step to the 4, half step from the flat 9 to the 1. Now let's stack up our chord tones and color notes to see what we have in the scale. So first we have 1 flat 3 flat 5. This is a diminished triad. And then we're going to add on that flat 7, because every chord should have a 1, 3, and a 7. So we have 1 flat 3 flat 5 flat 7. And then we're back to the root. Now if we wanted to add extensions, what could we add? Well, technically we could add a 9, and that would be a flat 9. So that would be this. But that's a little bit crunchy. So if we tried to play that on top of the chord, it would sound like this. Interesting sound, but not widely used. The 11th, on the other hand, is quite a nice one to add. So you can add the 11th, and that's kind of a color tone to explore on Phrygian. And it's only a half step below the flat 5. Now let's get on to where you'll actually use Lockrian. So you will most often use Lockrian over a minor 7 flat 5 chord. So therefore, where do we find minor 7 flat 5 chords in music? So first of all, in a major key, the 7th chord is always a minor 7 flat 5 chord. So if the key is D flat major, the 7th in D flat major is C. So it's just a half step below the root note. So key of D flat major, half step below, C minor 7 flat 5. And you'll often hear this chord progression. So just like a bit of a walk down. And there are some inversions which you'll hear over the 7th. Most often it will actually be a 5 over the 7th. So it's the sound. So that kind of shows that you don't actually have to use Lockrian over a song with the 7th in the bass. But if it's maybe a jazz song, you will hear that 7th chord with a minor 7 flat 5. So that's the sound. So on that 7th chord, C minor 7 flat 5, we would play C Lockrian. Now the most common musical situation, at least in jazz and in R&B, where you'll see the minor 7 flat 5 is in a minor 2-5-1 chord progression. So as you probably know by now, you can have a major 2-5-1, so that's the sound. 2-5-1. So it resolves to a major chord, therefore it's a major 2-5-1. But we can also do a minor 2-5-1. So what if the end goal is a minor chord? We can play a minor 2-5-1. And that's a very common sound. It's quite consonant, right? songs like blue bossa and jazz will have a minor 2-5-1 in them. And in a minor 2-5-1, the 2 chord is always a minor 7 flat 5 chord. Therefore, you can play Locrian over the 2 chord. Jazz theory warning, little segment here on minor 2-5-1 for you if you're a jazz guitarist or trying to be a jazz guitarist. So feel free to skip this part. But I do want to get into the practicality of Locrian, and should you actually use it, do guitarists, jazz guitarists use Locrian over minor 2-5-1? So let's take a song like Blue Bossa where we have that C minor chord. And the 2-5-1 is D minor 7 flat 5 to a G7 altered to C minor. So technically, and often what we would learn in school or online would be minor 7 flat 5 play D Locrian, right? And this is probably the first thing you would learn when you solo over it. But in practicality, there's a few other approaches that jazz musicians take, and this depends on the style of jazz which they're playing. But often they will just ignore the 2 and play the 5. So instead of saying, they would just say this. So I'm just thinking G7 over both this chord, G7, 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 resolving it. So it's simplifying the 2-5-1 into just a 5-1. Now, positionally, a quick shortcut to playing the Locrian position is just related back to the parent minor key. So key of C minor, we have a C Aeolian. Let's do it here. And that 2 Locrian is still that same position. So we're still within that C Aeolian, C Aeolian, C Aeolian. And then on the 5 chord, we would play our altered dominant or wherever it may be. So all that to say, the most common situation where you'll see a minor 7 flat 5 chord is in a minor key. And a quick way to find your Locrian position is just play Aeolian in the minor key. And lastly, I want to give you something more actionable to take away to outline the Locrian sound. So this is going to be an arpeggio, and this is what I personally use over a lot of minor 2-5-1 chords. So here is one arpeggio you could use. So let's get into these steps. First one is 1 octave. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 1 octave of the scale, and a quick and easy way to think about this is just D flat major, but starting from the 7th. So it's still in that same position, but we're just going to start down here. 2, 3, 4. 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, 6, 7. 1, flat 7, flat 6, flat 5, 4, flat 3, flat 2, 1, 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1, 7, 6, 4, 3, flat 2. So a little bit tricky, and as I mentioned at the top of today's lesson, not super important, but you know, if you want to get each mode on your fingers, now's the time to do it. When else are you going to spend time singing the Locrian mode than right now? So feel free to loop that if you want. 1, 2, 3, 4. right, so this is just quite simply our D flat major position, which we already know just starting from a half step below. We're using all of those same fingerings which we practiced all the way back in day one, so but it's just relating it back to that C minor 7 flat 5 sound. Let's get into this jam. So we're actually going from a C minor 7 chord. So this is our Locrian. And then we'll resolve it to a B flat minor. Here we go. So it's C minor 7, B flat minor. Let me hear that C Locrian now. Do that again. Ready, C Lockrian, go for it. All right, back to me. So on the B flat, you can just play B flat minor. Your turn, C minor Locrian. And to B flat, here we go. C Locrian, B flat minor. See if you can get that flat 9. C Locrian. Right, I'll give it a go. Turn, C Locrian, B flat minor. Try the arpeggio. You're a serious guitar player. I know that because you made it all the way through this 1 hour long video. So go to Pickup Music and take out a Pickup Music membership. It has a 14-day free trial. You get access to not only this program, but every class we've released, including sync tabs, jam tracks, and personalized feedback. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, hit the like button and the bell to get notified when we release more free lessons here on YouTube.